Now to the case of a college student from Southfield who was seriously hurt while home on summer break, and then she later died at the hospital.
Police are now investigating the case as a homicide. Terrell Bailey spoke with police and the victim's mother. He joins us with more from the Southfield Police Department.
Everybody loved Mia. Everybody would always ask when Mia was coming home when she was at school. Like, she was that girl.
23-year-old Mia Kanu had her whole life ahead of her. Studying to be a veterinarian at Tennessee State, recently she was back in town for summer break. Southfield police say on June 3rd around 4:30 in the morning, a passerby discovered Mia laying along Providence Drive in front of the Coach House Apartments. Her mother tells me police told her Mia was ejected from a car hours prior.
There was no deformities, no disfigurements, nothing of that magnitude that at that point in time that would imply any types of assault.
Police did confirm to us that Mia did have some level of abrasions on her body when she was found. According to her mother, family did see her before she went out that night.
She did come home after work and grab a pair of socks from her sister at around 11 p.m.
After Mia's body was found, she spent days in the hospital. Her family ended up deciding to donate her organs once doctors realized she wasn't having much brain activity. It's a move her mom says Mia would have approved.
Her sister and her had a conversation, and she told her, when I die, I want my body donated to science.
Police say Mia's friends that were in the car with her that night are cooperating with the investigation.
As of now, we don't have any evidence that will suggest another vehicle struck her.
For Mia's family, they're now left with several questions and no answers. Their biggest one, why?
I was told nobody called 911. Nobody reached out to anybody. And that speaks volumes.
Now police continue to investigate. They tell me they're awaiting to hear back from the medical examiner's office to determine Mia's official cause of death. As for the family, they tell me they plan to hold a celebration of life for Mia next Friday. For now, reporting in Southfield, I'm Terrell Bailey for CBS News, Detroit.
No one stopped. Not the driver, not the passenger, not even the so-called best friend she trusted with her life. She was left in the road in the dead of night with no one to call for help. Her name was Mia Kanu. She was 23 years old, a veterinary student home for the summer, and within hours of this moment, she would be brain dead from massive head trauma. But here's the question that's been tearing her family apart ever since. Did she fall out of that car, or was she forced out? There's video. It shows the exact moment Mia leaves the moving vehicle. But police won't tell us if it was an accident or something far worse. What we do know is this: the car kept going, and the people inside it never came back. Her mother still asks the same question every single day. How can a friend watch you fall and just drive away? If this could happen to Mia, it could happen to anyone you love. How does a night of laughter turn into a death that no one will explain? And why are the people who know the truth still silent? Let's find out.
Welcome to Twisted Crimes Files, where the darkest truths come to light. Stay with us for chilling stories you won't forget, and be sure to subscribe so you never miss a case.
Mia Kanu was found in the early hours of June 3rd, 2023, sprawled across Providence Drive in Southfield, Michigan. The road was quiet, the sky just starting to pale with dawn. There were no skid marks, no signs that a driver had slammed the brakes to avoid her. Only the stillness of a young woman fighting for her life. The stranger who spotted her pulled over and called 911. Moments later, emergency responders arrived, loading Mia into an ambulance bound for a nearby hospital. Doctors would quickly learn her injuries were grave, significant head trauma, no signs of defensive wounds, and no evidence she'd been struck by another vehicle. Southfield, a suburban city bordering Detroit, isn't the kind of place where bodies are usually found lying in the street before sunrise. Crime rates here are lower than the national average. But in this case, the location mattered less than the unanswered question: how did she end up there? Investigators quickly learned Mia had been a passenger in a car just minutes before she was discovered. Two other people were inside, the driver and another passenger. Both would later speak to police. Neither had called for help. The central mystery was born in those missing moments. What happened inside that car between the time it left an apartment complex and the time Mia's body hit the pavement? Mia was born and raised in Detroit, Michigan, the kind of child who seemed to carry sunshine with her wherever she went. She grew up surrounded by a large, blended family. Her mother, her father, a stepmother, for sisters, and a brother. Each of them remembers her as the one who could make the room lighter, even on the hardest days. From a young age, Mia loved animals. Not in the casual way children say they do, but in a deep, unwavering way that shaped her entire future. By high school, she was volunteering at shelters, learning how to care for injured strays, and talking about one day running her own veterinary clinic. At Tennessee State University, she pursued that dream relentlessly. As a senior in the agricultural department, she worked hands-on with livestock, small pets, and everything in between. Outside of school, she was a veterinary technician at Richland Animal Clinic in Tennessee. Her co-workers remember her not just for her skill, but for the way she could recall every animal's name and personality, as if each one mattered as much as her own family. Her friends say Mia had a knack for bringing people together. She could find common ground in any conversation, whether she was meeting someone for the first time or catching up with an old classmate. Her laugh, they say, was the kind that pulled you in and made you forget what you were worried about. She wasn't just building a career. She was building a life filled with purpose. And in the summer of 2023, she came home to Detroit to spend time with the people who had always supported her. None of them could have imagined that in just days, they would be gathering for a vigil instead of a welcome-home dinner. Among Mia's wide circle of friends, there were a few people who seemed to orbit closer than others. People she trusted, laughed with, and let into her inner world. One of those people was Kenya Monique Fern, a woman her own age. They weren't just casual acquaintances. Over time, they built a friendship rooted in shared experiences, late-night conversations, and a mutual understanding of what it meant to be young women navigating adulthood. Their lives often overlapped in Detroit and in Tennessee. Social media posts showed them at parties, sharing inside jokes, posing together in the kind of photos where you can't tell who took the lead and who followed. Friends of Mia say Kenya was one of the people she could call on for a night out, a ride somewhere, or just someone to keep her company when the silence of a quiet night felt too heavy. But like many close relationships, there's had its complexities. People close to both women hinted at subtle shifts over time, unspoken tensions, moments of friction that never boiled over publicly. Nothing that anyone would label a falling out, but enough for others to notice the occasional chill in their interactions. In the weeks before Mia's death, there was no public sign that anything was wrong. Their online interactions were lighthearted, their in-person meetups unremarkable. Yet on the night, it all changed. Witnesses later told police there was an argument, not between Mia and Kenya directly, but between Kenya and another individual in the parking lot of the apartment complex they visited. What was said in that exchange remains unclear. Police have not released transcripts or even summaries of those words. But whatever unfolded in that brief confrontation set the stage for the car ride that followed. The one that would carry Mia away from the safety of the apartment lights and into the darkness of unanswered questions. For anyone watching from the outside, this was just another night between friends. But inside that car, something was shifting, and in the next stretch of road, it would become irreversible. The street where Mia was found was the kind of place that feels forgotten in the early morning hours. Providence Drive, lined with apartment buildings and modest landscaping, lay under a still, almost unnatural quiet. The grass along the sidewalks glistened faintly with dew. The few streetlights that worked cast long, pale cones of light, leaving pockets of darkness in between. At this hour, even the hum of distant traffic on the main road seemed muted. It was into this silence that a driver, just another commuter heading somewhere before sunrise, spotted what at first didn't make sense. At a distance, it might have looked like a pile of clothing. But as they got closer, the shape became undeniable. A person lying on her side near the edge of the road. Mia's hair was splayed across the pavement, strands catching in the faint breeze. One of her hands was tucked awkwardly beneath her, the other lying palm up, fingers slightly curled as though mid-reach. The fitted top she'd chosen hours earlier now clung to her like a second skin. Her jeans scraped faintly at the knees, one sneaker tilted outward in a way no resting foot would naturally fall. The driver slowed, heart pounding, unsure if they were seeing a living person or a body already beyond help. When they stepped out of their car, the air was heavy with the kind of chill that comes not from temperature but from sudden awareness, the knowledge that something is terribly wrong. Up close, Mia was unresponsive. Her breathing was shallow, irregular. There was no visible blood on the asphalt, no shattered glass, no tire marks to tell the story. But her head rested at an angle that made the bystander instinctively avoid moving her. They fumbled for their phone, hands shaking as they dialed 911, their voice breaking when they said the words. "There's a young woman in the road. She's not waking up." Within minutes, the quiet street transformed. Emergency lights splashed red and blue across the brick walls of nearby apartments. Paramedics moved quickly but deliberately, securing Mia's head and neck, lifting her onto a gurney. She didn't stir when they spoke her name, didn't react to the straps being fastened, didn't open her eyes when the oxygen mask was placed over her mouth and nose. Neighbors, drawn out by the flashing lights, stood in clusters at their windows or on balconies. A few whispered to each other, speculating about whether she'd been hit by a car, whether she lived nearby, whether she'd been at a party earlier that night. But no one had seen the moment she arrived there on the pavement. Inside the ambulance, the steady rhythm of the heart monitor cut through the low murmur of voices. Her pulse was there, faint but present. The attending medic noted the trauma to her head and the absence of any defensive wounds. Another paramedic checked her pupils and exchanged a grim look with their partner. They didn't say the words out loud, but both understood this was bad. By the time the ambulance pulled away, Providence Drive looked almost untouched again. The only signs of what had happened were faint scuff marks where her body had been and the lingering unease that spread through anyone who had caught a glimpse of her before she was taken away. In the hours after Mia was rushed to the hospital, Southfield police began piecing together the fragments of a night that now seemed impossibly fractured. The case landed on the desk of investigators who understood that the first 24 hours would decide whether they were chasing the truth or losing it forever. They started with the simplest question: how did she end up in the road? The location was combed with methodical precision. Officers walked the stretch of Providence Drive, where she'd been found, stooping to examine the pavement under the cone of their flashlights. They searched for anything that could anchor the mystery to a clear sequence of events: fabric fibers, personal items, glass shards. The asphalt told no obvious story. No skid marks suggested a sudden stop. No debris hinted at a collision. From there, they turned to witnesses. The driver who had found Mia was interviewed first, their account carefully recorded. The distance at which they first noticed her, the way she was positioned, how quickly they called for help. Their details were consistent, but limited. They hadn't seen the vehicle she came from. By mid-morning, detectives were already zeroing in on the key lead. Mia had been in a car shortly before she was discovered. Two other people had been inside, one driving, one in the passenger seat. Both were located quickly. Their names, at this stage, were withheld from the public, but investigators noted one fact immediately: neither had called 911. This single detail shifted the tone of the investigation. It was one thing for someone to fall from a vehicle. It was another for those present to leave the scene without even checking if she was alive. Detectives obtained surveillance footage from multiple locations, starting with the Coach House Apartments parking lot where the car was last seen. They traced its path, intersection by intersection, camera by camera. At one point in the timeline, they found what they needed: an angle from a nearby building's security camera capturing the moment Mia left the moving vehicle. The image was grainy, the distance too far to confirm every movement, but the essentials were there: the rear passenger door ajar, a figure tumbling out, the vehicle never slowing. This raised new questions. Had she tried to get out on her own? Was she leaning out when the door swung open? Or had someone inside forced that door open in a way that sent her to the pavement? The autopsy would complicate things further. Toxicology results revealed a blood alcohol content of 0.21, more than twice the legal driving limit. This didn't explain the lack of action from those in the car, but it painted a picture of her physical vulnerability. At that level of intoxication, reflexes slow, balance wavers, and judgment is impaired. If she had leaned toward the door, whether to get air, to vomit, or to say something to someone outside, the risk of falling would have been dangerously high. But there were details that didn't align neatly with an accident. Investigators noted vomit on the door seal and on the roadway where she fell, suggesting she may have been ill before hitting the ground. Yet in all of this, what stood out most was the behavior of the driver. Not stopping, not calling, not turning around. Inside the department, theories split into three main branches. Accident born of neglect. She fell while intoxicated, and those inside panicked instead of stopping. Intentional harm. Someone inside, frustrated or angry, physically pushed her out. A combination of both. An argument or heated exchange triggered reckless behavior that ended in her ejection from the car. Detectives couldn't ignore the eyewitness accounts from earlier in the night. The raised voices, the body language in the parking lot. Was the tension from that moment carried into the car, still simmering as they drove? With these unanswered questions, police began building their timeline with minute-by-minute precision. Cell phone records were pulled, text logs reviewed, and digital footprints examined. The hope was that one slip, one overlooked call or message, would fill the gap between the apartment complex and the spot where Mia's body was found. For now, every possibility stayed on the table. And the longer it took to eliminate theories, the more the shadows around this case began to harden. News of what had happened to Mia didn't reach her family all at once. It came in fragments. A phone call in the early morning hours, words muffled by shock, the details slipping like water through fingers that were too numb to hold on. By the time her mother, Bianca Van Meter, reached the hospital, the reality was almost too heavy to process. Mia was alive, but not in the way that word usually means. Machines breathed for her now. The steady beeping of monitors filled the room in place of her voice. Tubes traced a foreign path from her arms, her nose, her mouth. Her skin was cool, her eyelids closed, lashes resting against her cheeks like she was in the deepest sleep. Bianca stood at her daughter's bedside, taking in every detail. The way her hand felt limp when she held it, the unnatural stillness of her chest rising and falling in perfect rhythm with the ventilator. There were no signs that Mia could hear her. No squeeze of the hand. No fantasma. Just the sterile hum of hospital life. She remembers asking the same question over and over, to nurses, to doctors, to anyone in scrubs who would pause long enough to meet her eyes. What happened to her? How did she end up here? The answers were all the same. They didn't know. They were waiting for swelling to go down, for scans to confirm the extent of the injury, for police to piece together the events that led to her lying alone in the road. In the days that followed, family members rotated in and out of that hospital room. Her siblings tried to be strong, sitting quietly, scrolling through photos on their phones, each image of Mia feeling like both a comfort and a knife in the ribs. Friends brought flowers, cards, whispered prayers. Some couldn't bring themselves to look too long at her in this state. Others sat close, talking to her as if she might still be able to hear and remember their words when she woke up. But the waking never came. On June 8th, after 5 days of holding onto the thin thread of hope, Bianca made the decision no parent should ever have to make. Mia was taken off life support. Before that moment, her mother posted a video, a final act of sharing her daughter with the world. In it, the hospital hallways seemed endless. Nurses and staff lined each side, their faces solemn. Mia's bed rolled forward, the white sheet pulled neatly over her, the machinery surrounding her moving with the quiet efficiency of a well-practiced team. She was being taken to give her last gift, her organs, so that even in death, she could save lives. Bianca's voice broke in the background as she captured the moment, her grief raw, her love unshaken. In interviews later, Bianca's words cut deeper than any official report. No one called 911. No one reached out to me. That speaks volumes about whoever did this. It wasn't just the loss that haunted her. It was the knowledge that the people who could have helped her daughter in those critical moments chose silence instead. At vigils in Detroit and at Tennessee State University, candles flickered in the summer night air. Friends shared stories about her kindness, her stubborn streak when it came to defending animals, the way she could make people feel like they belonged. Each memory was a fragment of a life she should have been allowed to keep living. And in every speech, every prayer, there was a steady refrain. Someone knows the truth. Someone is holding a piece of the puzzle. And until they speak, Mia's family will keep asking, loudly, publicly, relentlessly, why? In the weeks after Mia's funeral, the investigation shifted from gathering facts to determining accountability. For her family, that meant each phone call from the police carried the weight of possibility. This could be the one where they finally heard an arrest had been made. But those calls didn't come quickly. Behind closed doors at the Southfield Police Department, detectives worked closely with the Oakland County Prosecutor's Office. They reviewed the security footage again and again, breaking down each frame. The rear door opening, Mia's body leaving the vehicle, the car continuing forward. They measured the speed based on distance between landmarks in the video, factoring in the estimated time it took for her to hit the pavement. The numbers weren't perfect, but they painted a chilling picture. This wasn't a gentle roll forward. The car was moving at a pace that made her impact catastrophic. Then came the focus on the driver, Kenia Monique Fern. For weeks, her name was kept from public release, but quietly, investigators gathered the pieces. Her statement to police was compared against phone records, GPS data, and the sequence of events already documented. Each inconsistency raised eyebrows. The timing of when she claimed she realized Mia was gone, the lack of any attempt to turn back, the absence of a call for help. The toxicology report on Mia's blood alcohol content, 0.21, became part of the narrative in the charging decision. Prosecutors argued that while intoxication might have contributed to her fall, it did nothing to explain or excuse the driver's actions afterward. Under Michigan law, leaving the scene of an accident resulting in death is a felony, carrying a potential 15-year sentence. That charge would be paired with a misdemeanor count of operating while intoxicated. On September 20th, 2023, nearly 4 months after Mia's death, charges were filed. The announcement hit the news with a jolt. For the first time, the public heard the name of the woman accused of driving away. Reporters gathered outside the courthouse, cameras trained on the doors, waiting for the first glimpse of the defendant. The arraignment was tense. Prosecutors laid out the sequence. Mia in the back seat, the ejection from the vehicle, the driver leaving without stopping. The defense attorney pushed back, painting the case as a tragic accident compounded by panic. But even as those words were spoken, the weight of public opinion was heavy. In the gallery, members of Mia's family sat side by side, silent, their faces a mix of anger and exhaustion. Months later, the case took a turn that would reopen old wounds. In October 2024, Kenia entered a plea, no contest to the charges. For Mia's family, it was a hollow resolution. There would be no trial, no cross-examination under oath, no public airing of the details that had been locked in police reports. On December 13th, 2024, the sentence was handed down, 90 days in jail, 3 years probation. To those who had loved Mia, it felt like a gut punch. 90 days for leaving someone to die on the side of the road. 90 days for never making the call that might have saved her. Outside the courthouse, Bianca spoke to the press, her voice steady but her eyes betraying the storm inside. She called the sentence insulting and a reminder that the system doesn't always value every life equally. For many watching, the punishment felt more like a warning than justice. A warning that in cases like this, accountability could be minimal and closure elusive. In the months after sentencing, Mia's name did not fade from the community's memory. If anything, her family worked harder to ensure that it never would. The grief that once left them frozen began to take shape as action. Bianca and her loved ones channeled their pain into something they could control. The creation of the Mia Kanu Foundation. The mission was simple on paper, but deeply personal in practice. Empower young women through scholarships, mentorship, and service. Each program carried Mia's spirit. The scholarship applications asked about community involvement and compassion for others, the very traits she had lived by. The mentorship programs paired young girls with women who could guide them through life's turning points, the same way Mia had quietly guided friends and family who needed her. By summer 2024, the foundation was hosting events across Detroit. Fundraisers at the Detroit Zoo drew families, students, and animal lovers alike. Local news covered these gatherings, showing footage of smiling children in T-shirts bearing Mia's name, of community members walking hand in hand through zoo exhibits while wearing ribbons in her favorite colors. The events were joyful, but the undercurrent of loss was never far from the surface. Every speech began and ended with a reminder of why they were there. Because a young woman who should still be alive was taken far too soon. The outreach extended beyond fundraising. In August 2025, the foundation organized a free softball clinic for local youth, something Mia herself would have loved. The sun blazed overhead as girls in mismatched caps and gloves ran bases, their laughter carrying across the field. On the sidelines, Bianca watched, smiling at the sight, but never losing the focus of the moment. "We're here to give them a safe space," she told a reporter, "because you never know which day might be their last." That sentence, simple, yet loaded, stuck with those who heard it. It wasn't just about softball or scholarships or mentoring. It was about awareness, about making choices that keep you alive and surrounding yourself with people who will protect you when you can't protect yourself. And yet, the questions surrounding Mia's final moments have never gone away. The official case is closed in the eyes of the law, but to those who loved her, there are still gaps in the story. People still whisper about what really happened in that car, about what words were exchanged before the door opened, about what might have been different if a single decision, to stop, to call, to care, had been made. It's a reminder that justice, in the courtroom sense, is not the same as closure. The finality of the sentencing didn't erase the image of Mia's last night, and it didn't silence the truth her family knows in their bones. Someone knows more than they've said. That silence is its own kind of cruelty, one that keeps wounds open long after the funeral flowers have wilted. And so the foundation does more than honor Mia's life. It serves as a challenge to the community. At vigils, Bianca stands before crowds holding candles and says the words that have become her rallying cry. If you see something, say something. If you know something, speak it. Don't let fear make you a bystander to someone else's tragedy. The candles flicker in the night, the faces in the crowd lit from below, and the truth settles heavy in the air. The next Mia could be standing among them. Because this story isn't just about a single night in Southfield. It's about the danger of trusting the wrong people. It's about the consequences of staying silent. It's about the reality that tomorrow is never promised, and that the people in your passenger seat hold more power over your fate than you may ever realize. If this could happen to Mia, it could happen to you or to someone you love. Subscribe now so you never miss the truth about cases that could be unfolding right outside your door. And if you refuse, tell us in the comments why you'd rather stay silent when a next life could depend on you speaking. Was Mia's death a tragic accident, a moment of negligence, or an act of betrayal that the courts could not or would not fully name? The answer lives in the space between what is known and what is still hidden. And until the whole truth is spoken, her family will not stop asking. For the sake of her mother, her siblings, her friends, and the young women who will walk this world after her, someone, somewhere, needs to speak. Her story will not end here.